Hope everything is good at your place. We pray for your well-being. Let's hope that we are, the corona thing is behind us sometime very soon. I'm sure God is very kind. It will happen. Friends, this is the second webinar in the series that we started last week, organized by FMS Alumni Association for the benefit of FMS alumni as well as today's webinar is titled Way Forward for Consumer and Tech Businesses. And we are proud to have Mr. Anup Jain, one of our very senior alumni from FMS. Mr. Anup Jain is an alumnus of FMS batch 1996, that's 94 to 96, full-time. After graduating from FMS Delhi, he spent his career in marketing with P&G, Whirlpool. He has over 20 years of experience, I think we should say 24 years of experience of building brands across countries and categories. He has been an angel investor in areas of Agri-tech, B2B tech, HR tech, and digital media. At present, he is the managing partner at Orios Ventures Partners, where he leads FMCG and retail investment domain. He loves discovering new places and cultures. Welcome to lead the second semi-webinar at FMS Alumni Association. For FMS, we are happy, privileged, and proud to have you for the webinar on Way Forward for consumer and tech businesses. Mr. Zuhaib Khan, who is a graduate of FMS 2009, is hosting this webinar. He is the CEO of Valedra, Apeejay Stya and Svran, assisted by two moderators, Mr. Nitin Gupta and Mr. Dheeraj Jain. And we welcome all the participants, all the faculty members, and all batchmates of Anup Jain. Over to Mr. Zuhaib Khan. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir, for introducing Anup. Anup, thanks a lot for taking time out on a Sunday morning. And we welcome you to FMS event. This is the second in the series of webinars that we are hosting, and under the banner of FMS Alumni Association. Singla sir has been kindly helping us out all through, and it is under his guidance only that we will be taking these forward. Before we start, Anup, I would want to understand more about your career trajectory. Obviously, you passed out from FMS in 1996. Then you have had stint at RB, GFK, with handling a large portfolio at YUM, where you were heading e-commerce as well. And then slightly change of gears after Bata and doing Redback advisory. And then moving on to Orios. So it will be quite interesting to know as to what made you follow this career path, because as we were discussing on earlier before everybody joined in, was that this is quite an interesting career path. So over to you, Anup.
Thank you, sir. This is a great initiative to be organized, and I know you've been at the hem of affairs, organizing various alumni dinners and all of that, and I've been guilty of not being able to attend many of these, but this is the new normal. I was very happy when Nitin contacted me and we were able to do the webinar. I think this is the most efficient method today. All of us have, courtesy COVID, realized that one can be as productive and as useful to oneself and to others through this medium. The only thing that comes in the way is internet speed, which if you solve for it, then the rest of it can flow. And a lot of our discussion today will be around this as well, which is how our lives can be led digitally and what is the opportunity over there for all of us. Thank you, Zuhaib, for the intro as well. So about my career, look, it's a funny thing. You ask a question of this sorts, and one tends to sort of think about it. Otherwise, one doesn't tend to think about it, because one moves on in life, and life is a collection of experiences. And life around us, I think we've been gifted that in the last 20 years, the number of things that have changed around us has been tremendous. So if you look around us, our entire lives have been constantly changing. So, there is absolutely no point in resisting these changes when we experience them as consumers. These are not trends anymore. They're already mainstream, and business models often lag what consumers are already ready to receive and ready to adopt in a big way. Because business models are all set in the past, and there are practices and processes, and there are organizations around them. Organizations tend to be large, and decision-making tends to get slower as organizations expand. And therefore, if one wants to steer one's career in the direction in which one can sense that the world is headed, there is no other option but to change one's organization. And I have used that as a cornerstone for guiding my career forward. Sometimes I would say, I don't regret it, but I had maybe made that decision earlier in time. So after Procter and Gamble, I joined a .com startup, and I was pretty amazed by the entire, investors and the entire leadership. And it was something that we underwent in life, which is so precious. We're all close to each other, even 20 years later. But there were only 1 million. Yes, but there were only 1 million internet users at that point of time. There was Rediff.com, there was Yahoo, Hotmail got sold by Sabir Bhatia during that time, and Rajesh Jain with India Internet World, and those were the times. So I felt quite tempted and attracted to jumping into that space. So there was a bit of an element of entrepreneurship inside me, but that was not the time for digital entrepreneurship, which was to be based in real businesses and profitability. Very few of them actually survived beyond that time. So I think that element remained in me. And therefore, after a myriad of corporate experiences, I quite realized that now this is mainstream. There are 60 million internet users. Mobile devices are growing in terms of intensity of usage. People are spending, I'm reading the ET today, it's almost 4 hours is being spent on the mobile phone today. Courtesy, of course, COVID, but even before that, numbers were between 220, 250 minutes a day. So the world is moving in a certain direction, and I cannot be stuck, in a world which has gone past. So I have desperately always wanted in my career to be part of what is going to be the future. And I'm not yet close to retirement, so I must keep reinventing myself, much like, Salman has done or Amitabh Bachchan has done. Of course, they are much bigger and greater than me and, many others. They rise above all of us. But I think I draw inspiration that, look, if you're going to be still working, you've got to have your nose pointed in the direction of the future. One cannot be looking at the rear view and trying to, if I may use the term, massage it for more than it's worth. So the train for a digitally led life has indeed left the station many, many years ago. And therefore, businesses which are going to be built around that are going to create far more value. As students of management, we look around all over the world. We look at the stock markets. We look towards the US as well. Today, you see that the top companies in the US stock markets or international markets are all internet-run companies: Google, Netflix, Amazon, Zoom has zoomed, as its word says. So I think these are the companies which have created value. And unfortunately, in the Indian stock market, it's still reflection of yesterday's era. So we have private equity or private wealth which has stepped into this era and supported entrepreneurship, which is built around tech-enabled businesses, which is the subject of our conversation today. So when I had got a whole lot of experience from traditionally driven businesses, but I had taken up tasks within that around e-commerce and digital. I remember my time in Australia in 2011, about 25% of our pizza delivery business used to come from online, and we were still dependent on a very, very costly call center to take most of our orders. And the internet penetration in Australia was near 100%. I mean, iPhone penetration was, even a cab driver had an iPhone. And in barely 2 years' time, we jumped to over 50%. All we had to do was relaunch our website, have iPhone app, which we didn't have. I mean, the basics, and convert, from 5% of our marketing budget to 30% of our marketing budget targeted online in 2011 and 12, we can remember. So the same thing happened in China. The same thing is happening in India. So it is fait accompli that most of the skills and businesses that will thrive in the coming years will be in this space. So that's what prompted me each time to make a step in that direction. 10 years back, I thought retail was going to take off. If you remember, many of you would remember some of the changes that the government made, although with some restrictions on FDI and retailing and single brand and multi-brand, etc. And then e-commerce came up, so I joined retail. I experienced two parts of retail franchise, company-owned, family-owned versus multinational, food versus non-food or lifestyle.
We do have a lot of questions related to that.
Yeah, so I think this was now time for me to step into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I was I didn't have any startup idea of my own, nor did I have the energy to go ahead and start a company. So I said, what's the next best thing? Work alongside with, entrepreneurs who are following this dream and creating that value. And hopefully I can add some value on their journey from the investing side. So that's where I joined a bit of angel investing on my own. And then met Rehan, who's the founder and managing partner at Orios. And he was looking for a second partner. So we joined hands in late 2017, and I joined full time in 2018. We've had a third partner join us last year from a similar background, same vintage. I'm Bangalore 96, ex-Colgate, Geo, Infosys Marketing, Rajiv Suri. So we in our firm keep a profile of people with operating experience behind us, not necessarily banking and investment experience. We think that's a secret sauce when you're dealing with early stage founders who are working in small teams, probably one or two co-founders, and then a very small team to make their idea reach the next stage. So we can possibly help with our experience, having committed those mistakes in large companies, so that we can avoid those mistakes and create value in those companies and help them with functions that they're naturally not maybe coming from, so on and so forth. So I think that's a bit about where I'm working and my career trajectory. I think people have had awesome trajectories, but this sort of satisfies me at a personal and professional level. And my only advice, for whatever it's worth, is not to follow others, is to just follow what you wish to do and where you draw your satisfaction from. I think money will come, and once you follow your passions, and it'll become quite obvious that you're happy working where you are. So I have no problem talking to founders all of Sunday, Saturday, whatever, because I love doing what I do. For me, this is a vacation at work, So it's I love doing this. So being associated with new ideas. I try to do that in my corporate career with those companies as well. I'm very lucky to have gotten a lot of turnaround assignments and assignments which required innovation and creativity. Mix that with the numbers, which make business sense, and that's what excites me professionally. So find your own mojo. That's what I would say to all the young graduates over here, and just pursue it. You'll be very happy.
Well, thank you, Anu, for sharing that in brief with us. And we have many participants who have joined us. Thank you for joining us on our Sunday morning. We obviously have Anup with us, who is also an FMS alumnus and a renowned VC. And we have received a lot of questions from you all, and we will try and cover most of them. Whatever we're not able to cover, we'll take it up later on. If you have some questions, even between, please feel free to click on the Q&A button, which you see at the bottom of your screen, and then you can keep sending us your questions. We also have a lot of senior alumni who have joined us. So I have Mr. Deepak Tandon from 1992 batch. I have Nimrit Khullarji from 1988 batch, and so on and so forth. So thank you, and we are very happy to have all of you with us. Anup, we have one question, and this is from Naraini. Naraini's question is, why did you start investing on your own, and what led you to start Redback Advisory? You have covered a little bit in between, but then she specifically asks about Witifeed, and how was your experience with them? How did you find them? How did you help them grow?
Okay. When I wanted to, when I was jumping off the corporate sort of career after 20 years, this is like the second set in tennis. So I had pretty much sort of reached a point where I was bored. I had decided that I will jump into the entrepreneurial ecosystem because it was flourishing, thriving, and I could see that it was going to do so in the future, and whatever I was doing was going to be in the past. I think in investing, you deserve respect when you've got skin in the game. Even in the funds that we manage, the partners contribute anywhere between 3 to 5% of the funds themselves. So if we are taking 300 crores to invest and raising that from institutions and family offices and high net worth individuals, close to 10 to 12 crores will be contributed by the partners themselves. So the moral of the story is really skin in the game. And since I hadn't stepped into investing, I wanted to invest some of my own savings that I had, that were very dear to me. I didn't want to let them go, but I wanted to experience my own style of investing without joining any angel networks, without joining anyone or going by anybody's advice or going into a herd mentality. So I decided to invest some of my savings into some of those businesses to learn what is good investing and what is bad investing. I think I learned my lesson in a few cases. So some investments failed, and it goes without saying that a diverse portfolio has a better return than a skewed portfolio or a very small portfolio. So if any of you are planning to get into investing, please invest in at least 5 to 10 startups. Never invest in just 1 or 2. So have that because you don't know, 80% of them will fail and only 20% of them will break out. In terms of Witifeed, I really liked the concept. The company was going great guns. It did experience some headwinds in terms of Facebook cutting off some of the influencer marketing that they were relying on. And therefore, the founders had to reinvent their model. They have since then relaunched that platform, plus also launched a new platform called Stage. And this is an app for dialect-based entertainment. So OTT entertainment, which is from amateur artists. So if you're a person coming from Haryana, which is where they have currently focused their launch, you could experience amateur Haryanvi artists in the genre of poetry or songs or stand-up comedy or even spiritual, devotional, etc. This kind of entertainment is missing in India, where you'd like to do that. And since it is all through the app, tomorrow they can even monetize all of this by maybe beaming an artist live to a social gathering being organized by a family purely for their some occasion at home, where they all want to enjoy a Hasya Kavi Sammelan just for their family over the app and by paying a certain amount. So I think some of these, so I really like the team. I think when you're investing in early stage, the team matters the most. And the team really stood its ground with the kind of barriers and challenges they faced and reinvented themselves and in fact relaunched a new business. So I have previously invested my time in teams which were not that coherent, which were expecting that in 6 months we will have some quick wins and we will become millionaires overnight. And I learned from that mistake that even the best of degrees and the best of academic backgrounds, if you don't have the commitment to be successful in what you're doing, that means you basically lack the self-belief, and people lacking self-belief should never start businesses. And investors like myself will only burn their fingers if we even see a hint of the fact that you're not committed, right? Because writing a check is easy, starting a company is very easy, but sustaining it is extremely difficult.
I could not agree with you more. In fact, our participants here would also be, I'm pretty sure, taking notes today because we have quite interesting questions which have already come to us. Anup, one of the questions which was coming from a lot of people is that, and since you have deep expertise in FMCG, what are the subsectors in FMCG you are looking at which you think will grow now post COVID-19? The growth which was there will now get accelerated. And what are your thoughts on the same?
Right. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry.
Nice,
I think that, yeah, there was a bit of a break in the middle. So we see that health and wellness is going to be center stage. You know, India has been a country which is gifted with average age being, you know, extremely low as compared to some of the developed countries. So we're 27 or something. So generally, all of us feel that we are invulnerable. In fact, we have low insurance penetration, etc. But health and wellness is going to take center stage. We have seen a whole lot of, you know, WhatsApp messages and everything going around how to boost your immunity and how to stay fit, etc. So this industry is certainly going to go up. So in nutrition, you will cover any, you know, personalized nutrition regimes, even personalized nutritional OTC products. So somebody is making Ayurveda multivitamin, you know, immunity boosters for kids and segmented by age, etc. All of that will see an uptick now. Consumers will start to see that becoming a regular part of their baskets. So it's not just personal care products, but you know, true health and immunity boosting products will become a part of that. I think in FMCG, removal of baddies will be seen with high degree of interest by consumers. Consumers hardly used to pay attention to the labels and the ingredients. I think it has become abundantly clear that those with comorbidities are at higher risk during COVID, and generally these conditions are not a welcome addition to one's life. And therefore, people, in order to stay away, will start looking at what they are consuming with a far greater degree of interest. So, you know, products with labels screaming of baddies like sugar and saturated fats and so on and so forth, and not the right balance and quantities, will be suspect. We also believe that ready-to-eat foods with the right ingredients and right balance of substances and components will take off. So generally, you know, you may have been buying Maggi noodles, but tomorrow when you see a challenger and a competitor which is fortified, you know, with immunity boosters and with the right degree of sugar and oil and the right kind of oils, that will attract you much more. Households, which are the top 50 million households in the country, they behave very differently from the balance, as we know, India 2 and India 3, and rural I'm not counting because they're not the drivers of consumption here, I'm sure, and that's not of interest to our webinar. So these top 50 million people, they will certainly start looking at labels much more seriously. They'll start going in for personalized substances. We have already, as a partnership, you know, as fund managers, invested in a direct-to-consumer brand. Many of you may be getting it at your homes, which is Country Delight. It started off in Delhi, started off with milk and dairy, and then moved on to bread, and now it has protein-rich eggs as well. So, you know, daily essential categories will see innovations, all moving in the direction of health and wellness. The other thing is that channels will now be more direct-to-consumer. Third-party channels eat up almost 40 to 50% of FMCG brands' margins, and it prevents the brand from interacting and knowing their consumers directly. So this was yesterday's era. I worked in some of those companies, and then one had to deploy market research to get some secondary analysis and secondary information about what the consumer was saying about your products, etc., because it didn't know where the consumers were who were actually consuming those products. So you had to do listing surveys and get them into focus group discussions and so on and so forth. So I think that era is over. Today, with so many millions of consumers on the internet, you can very well be a digital first brand, going direct to the consumers' households, being ordered online, shipping to their households on a subscription model, which is extremely profitable because you don't have to suffer the cost of acquisition each time.
Every time.
And get consumers into a habit with the right products meant for them. And you can even make it personalized. So that, I think, is the era which is going to emerge now in the coming years. And in fact, it has already emerged. Like I gave an example of one of our investments. So we continue to look for examples, for instance, in women's nutrition, in pediatric health, in geriatric health as well. Which are value accretive in terms of health. So FMCG categories will see an overall health component, wellness component coming into them. And they'll be direct to consumer and not third party, which is going to change the way we interact with these brands.
Sure. And what do you think about the fitness industry? Where is it heading? We, in fact, have one of our alumni, Vikram Sehgal, working on his own fitness app related to AI and computer vision. And his question is related to the same. What are your thoughts on the fitness industry?
Yeah, so fitness and look, there's already a large company, everyone knows about it, CureFit, CultFit, etc., which is operating, and they've also gone online with many of their videos. Even my son is using their 10-minute workout, which is, he told me yesterday, burns 120 calories and comes with all the lunges and the squats. He's 12, so,
Yeah, they have customers in that segment as well. Interesting.
Yeah, he's got his phone. He's utilizing that because, he used to have a coach coming in to train him. He's into cricket, but he couldn't do that during the lockdown, so he's relying on that. But it's just a semblance of things to come. He discovered that on his own, and he's now sharing it with me. That look, if you don't feel like going down for a walk and maybe doing some exercising in the gym or something, then you can do some of these exercises at home. And it burns 120 calories, plus it strengthens your glutes and hamstrings and so on and so forth. Yeah. So it's a sign of things to come. Fitness is going to be dispensed online. And the need for a class, therefore, is going to be for special training, special requirements. I see a big change in the health and fitness club scenario and gym scenario coming up as well. It is similar to what work from home will cause commercial real estate to undergo. Now, I think commercial real estate will also have to evolve with number of people. TCS has already announced moving to working from home. You will actually require not co-working spaces, but co-meeting spaces. Maybe you will have a co-working space which will only have meeting rooms, meeting room of 12, 6, 4, 8, whatever. And you can book these rooms for your internal meetings to have a meeting between employees which may travel from their homes for a meeting to be held on a particular subject and then go back home, or with any of your clients in the vicinity and so forth. So Uberization of real estate will also behave differently. Same thing will happen in the case of fitness as well. So large spread out gyms with lots of, machines, etc. All of that may become more sparse, and, usage of those facilities may become more Uberized. Currently, it has been all about, pay the annual membership or pay the quarterly membership. I think there are already some fitness platforms working on Uberizing that. So you can use it for an hour or 2 hours. And, if you want it, but the rest of it you can do whenever you want. You can also do that in your home. So a lot of home videos are taking off. And there has been a spike in fitness videos, even, you can see it in China, etc. So I think that is what is going on. Along with that, which is actual fitness, I think nutrition will be an integral part of it. So yeah, just picking up a protein powder, from a shelf, etc. I think that will change. For everyone, it'll be a different, different classification depending on age, fitness, and your activity levels in general and what lifestyle you lead. So this kind of stuff is only possible using technology. So platforms which offer these more holistically will win over any other platform which is offering a broken experience. Today, I have to consult someone for nutrition, maybe a doctor or a dietitian or something. I have to go to a gym for fitness. How do I combine all of this to be in absolute good health? Why can't I get it all in one place? Right. So I think broken experiences always lose to holistic and full experiences.
Sure. I think Vikram has got a very good answer. And now, since we're talking about the health and wellness segment, there is another question from, and quite an interesting question. It is from Ilyas Qazi. He's FMS 1983 batch. And his question is, what is the outlook for personal care industry? Will these, the things we are talking about, people going and reading the labels, will that also get impacted now in the personal care segment? Will it also happen that more D2C brands will come up in the personal care segment, which can, be catering to women or kids or old people and so on and so forth? What are your thoughts in these? And I'm pretty sure that you are already seeing startups in the same space.
Yeah, so I think I answered that a little while ago that we certainly feel, and different funds may have different theses, we feel that direct-to-consumer brands will definitely take off. Tech platforms which help to understand the consumer through voluntary submission of data regarding your own self, what lifestyle you lead, what kind of foods do you eat, etc. All of that will lead to segmenting of consumers, and products then specially tailored and designed to them can be then bucketed and can be delivered to these customers without need for a third-party channel. Typically, a brand in FMCG spends about 10% of its monies in marketing costs, spends anywhere close to 25 to 30% in channel costs, another 4-5% in trade marketing costs, and various other maybe overheads with regards to people, maybe another 3 to 4%. So all of these will be, can be done through technology in an automated fashion, with the consumer being willing today to expand their time on online platforms to give you that information in return for a customized product, right? Because what they were doing essentially earlier on was limiting their screen time and going out, commuting in the marketplace, having seen an advertising message on television or on YouTube or wherever else in online fashion, and then going to a supermarket to purchase a plain vanilla product which is meant for everyone. Now now I think consumers have become smarter, and this COVID incidence of lockdown has made everyone sort of circumspect about what kind of life they are leading and how they can lead it better. So more things are going to be centered around screen time and searching for platforms which can consume this information that you're willing to give, of course, privacy ensured, and give you a customized product in return, which works for you. So direct-to-consumer platforms are going to increase, and the change always begins at the top. So the first 50 million consumers who drive most of the consumption, they have already started with this trend. So we see that trend continuing. And therefore the legacy FMCG companies will have to either contend with decreasing market share or will have to change their models. So that will come up. They have already, you've seen some of the US companies, they have gone ahead and acquired some of these startups which became very large, whether it was men's care, in the area of, grooming, etc., or it was, beverages. PepsiCo has acquired sort of healthier companies. There are, even the F&B space, there have been launches of healthier companies. So we'll see some of that coming out here as well.
Sure, Anup. Thank you. I think the way you are telling us that consumer behavior will obviously change brings us to our next question, on which we will need your input. The question is from Karishma, and she wants to understand what will happen in offline retail now, whether it's like fashion retail or non-essential or essential retail. How will they cope up with the current scenario, and what happens after 6 months or 12 months?
I think it's a foregone conclusion that COVID is going to be a W curve. So with lockdown 3.0 restrictions now or guidelines announced yesterday, there is going to be graded opening up of the economy. So there is going to be increasing infections. There is going to be then testing and contact tracing, and it is going to go through this phase until a vaccine or there's herd immunity which is developed. Consumers during the next 6 to 12 months are likely to be circumspect about visiting large malls or such places where they're likely to get infections faster. Also, offline retail, essentials is definitely continuing. In fact, the demand increased because of hoarding. Many of our investee companies also saw that. But the offline companies, in case of non-essentials, will not see an increase or a restoration of demand immediately. The reason is economic uncertainty. We are not a country with social security. You can't apply for an unemployment allowance, etc. All of those things. A lot of middle management, junior management, senior management, even in the top 50 million people, they're all quite worried and concerned that they'll be at the receiving end of the stick when there's a restructuring or a layoff. Salary cuts have already been announced across the board by many large companies. Dividends are being held back, so your savings aren't going to grow. Many mutual funds have collapsed. So there is going to be economic uncertainty. So in this scenario, you're not in a mood to raise your discretionary spend. You're in a mode to control it. And coming from an emerging market with the, we as an Indian middle class, the savings rate is one of the highest in the world, and it has remained so through generations. So we are not about to turn into, Americans or other Western nations where we will take out our credit cards and start behaving like we can roll over the credit and start to, cover up for all the shopping that we did not do in the last 1.5 months. So it is not part of our culture. So I think savings is going to be is going to remain the mantra for a rainy day. Offline retail is going to bear the most of the brunt, unfortunately, for non-essentials. So apparel, jewelry, categories which are related to leisure, aviation, hospitality, all of these things drive demand for non-essentials, right? So F&B consumption happens, which is all discretionary. People go to restaurants, people shop for things because of all of these environments being placed close to each other. So when you're traveling, there is duty free. When you're traveling, there is shopping at the airport. There is restaurant usage, hotels usage, and there are shopping opportunities around hotels and all of that. So shopping, entertainment, some of this is definitely going to take a knock. I think that's pretty clear. Restaurants, F&B, somebody asked a question, so I'm just going to cover that off. People are talking about contactless dining. Yeah, people are talking about contactless dining, etc. I think it's, you may try and do it, but will it be viable to run your restaurant, right? 12 to 15% of your restaurant's top line goes as rentals. Now, if your revenue is going to fall because you're going to distance out your tables, then during peak hours you will not be able to make as much money as you did normally. So then the percentage of rentals is going to go to 20-25%. Labor cost is going to go up. It is going to be a bit of a wait and watch scenario. There will be businesses shutting down. There will be loss of jobs. I think that is inevitable. But what will emerge out of this will be newer concepts, which allow for healthier usage of these premises. Prices may go up. I would reckon that home chefs are doing extremely brisk business within their condominiums and within their societies and communities. We might see a new segment of subscale home chefs remaining subscale, but doing this work during their work hours that they can, and producing those many hygienic, healthy meals, and even getting a premium for it and being able to compete. I noticed a menu from Marriott was floated yesterday on some WhatsApp group. Okay. And they have started to deliver their food in a hygienic, obviously, and they've got a whole list of features over there which assures you about the health and hygiene. So some of these services will substitute for some of those occasions that we will sacrifice in the period of economic uncertainty.
Sure.
But don't expect apparel, footwear, lifestyle, or some of these categories to perk up versus a year ago in the next 1 year or so. Certainly not. Not in India.
Sure. I think that is something which we have been also reading and hearing. But then your inputs on the W-shaped recovery is something which I'm pretty sure that the participants are taking back with them from today's webinar. Anup, what are the other sectors you are looking at as investors, which you feel now have become attractive? Are you looking at gaming, edtech? Edtech, obviously, we know that you already invest in. What are your thoughts on health tech? And are you also thinking about any other sectors which have suddenly come up and you think that they will continue to grow in the next 10, 15 years?
Yes. So edtech is, I think, is pretty much known to everyone. Unfortunately, look, the government is not going to have the resources or the answer to how education is going to be dispensed in a mixture of online and offline. And certainly does not have any answer for dispensation of education online. So therefore, the private sector and entrepreneurs will step in very readily and come up with hybrid models, much like the two-teacher model in China run by New Oriental and TAL. And there will be other online SaaS platforms which will help teachers to go online. Today, if a teacher conducts a class on a Zoom or a Hangout, it does not integrate with anything else that she or he are using for their students, whether it's mark sheets or assessment or assignments and grade books and commenting, and there is no blackboard or whiteboard, etc. So there will be edtech SaaS solutions which will come up for tutors to go online, come up for school teachers and college teachers to go online, and students, beyond even the top tier cities, right up to rural, they are going to now increasingly purchase mobile devices to be able to receive education online.
Sure.
And there's a lot of content free, which is available on the internet in any case, which is aligned with CBSE and curriculum, etc. So edtech SaaS solutions, which help teachers go online, private schools, universities, government schools, universities online, those will come up, which integrate with school management systems. There are many solutions right now which exist. So platforms will have to come up which offer all of that on an integrated fashion so that the teachers can manage their lives much better. Right? So, all of that will be required. Imagine that if this Zoom that we are doing had a transcript which was being automatically generated, like, for example, Hangout does that, but sometimes it escapes the right text because it is more attuned towards American pronunciation. So some of these solutions will then come up and make both the student and the teacher's life easy. Health tech is definitely another area. We've already invested in a full stack diabetes management company called Vito, located in Delhi, in fact. And we are seeing that digital therapeutics is going to take off very much like it did all over the world. There are companies like Livongo, Omada, etc., who offer full stack solutions out of Europe, US. We are going to see emergence of that in Asia. Health tech in Asia is even more acutely required. A very low percentage, I think it's about 1.3, 1.4% of our GDP gets spent on healthcare, which is poor. The number of doctors per million patients is abysmally low. The number of beds is abysmally low. And therefore, we need to be in a preventive mode rather than in a curative or a treatment mode. So if people can use these digital therapeutics to take care of their own health without needing a bed, without needing a doctor, all the time, or having to consult, imagine so much of capacity can be freed up. So a lot of this medical knowledge will have to be then transferred and automated online. After all, when you go to a doctor and say that, look, I have a cough or I have some symptom of fever, typically the line of questioning does not change from one doctor to another, right? So therefore, the automation can be done. There are only 3 or 4, antibiotics or pills or something that they dispense and organize. So why should we crowd our clinics in our healthcare system, particularly the OPD, with millions of people seeking the same advice, which can be dispensed online. So I think some of these protocols, save of course quick approvals from the government, will come up. women's health, pediatric health, geriatric health again, and these will turn into platforms, and doctors and various stakeholders, even insurance companies, will tend to hook onto these platforms because they'll allow for easy management monitoring by consumers as well as by the stakeholders on the other side. So for example, Livongo is a company in the US, and it has a B2B business where your company's insurance plan gets a diabetic to basically take their tests and monitor their activity, physical activity, which is very important for diabetics, to be monitored by the insurance company. And basis that, they regulate the premiums, they offer the advice, they line up consultations and tests to make sure that you are in good health. And all of it is obviously done digitally. So the trip to the clinic and a trip to the healthcare system costs X rupees or X dollars. And that can be saved if we have adequate data, to automate all of this and make it happen only when it is required to happen and not otherwise. So the Indian healthcare system is in desperate sort of need for that. And startups which will come here will solve both sides of the problem. Then the other area is gaming. We did a recent investment in real money gaming called Zupi. It is it's like a Kaun Banega Crorepati, where they ask you some simple questions, quizzing, you bet some 100 rupees or whatever you like. And
is it live? Can I go?
Yes, it is
now?
live. Yes,
okay,
Zupi is available on the web. Yeah, Zupi is available on the web. And they grew 45x in the last 8 months. And real money gaming, or gaming in general, social gaming, will definitely grow as people spend more time on the screen and indoors. I think people spending more time on the screen is a given. It's just that people spending on time right now indoors is an aberration. Even if that gets corrected, screen time is anyway going to emerge as higher than what it was pre-COVID, right? As consumers have already transferred part of their lives online and they will not take it back. The gaming industry in China, for example, post-COVID grew about by maybe 30% in revenues year on year. And the same thing is happening over here. I think today's ET carries a bit of a caption on that as well, which is how mobile gaming is growing and how even students are managing to convince their parents to pay 600 rupees to keep them occupied, during this time.
Yeah.
So so I think this will really grow. So no gainsaying that this is like a very good investment. Sure. Also, as you can understand, crowded game parlors and the likes of Smash, etc., they're going to fall out of favor, right? Or they will have to operate with greater distancing between the players and games. That's maybe going to take the fun away for some people. Maybe it's going to get definitely more expensive as the real estate utilization gets lower. Therefore, new models are going to be basically online and in your home. So I see also a lot of increase in home Wi-Fi upgrades. Various people would have realized that their home Wi-Fi is not adequate, and they will need to boost their home Wi-Fis. They will need to upgrade their routers. They will need to have extenders.
That is something that happened with us as well. Sorry, interrupting you. So as you know,
absolutely.
We have 13 schools, 13 colleges, and one university at Apeejay. Close to 40,000 students are dependent on us for their learning. So when this came, we were obviously, fighting a very hard battle. Good thing was we had Moodle as a learning management system, and we were using Zoom for almost a year or so. But then actually having laptops delivered to our teachers and to make sure that their Wi-Fi is working properly, that is something we have faced the pain. So I'm completely on this with you. Some startup is doing that, I would maybe the first client you should reach out to.
Great. So I think so many of us have already experienced this. Home automation, productivity, etc., will be increasing. I see also a trend that consumers will be ready, which they generally have not been, at least in India, to pay for apps and platforms which help them do much more. Okay. Earlier, we used to have this mindset that apps are free, right? If I download something, it is got to be free, right? Of course, we've all downloaded movies and whatever else, but productivity apps, which will have now usage in our lives as we try and get more and more out of the time that we spend with them, with the devices that we are. using, we will see a favorable mindset towards subscription and paying for something that you're using. So a YouTube app without ads and something which plays even in the background, because you have a premium membership, will be of value, right?
Sure.
If you're going to use cloud storage, right, for saving your work, as I understand, many people's devices and laptops actually crashed during this period, right? And with no hope of repair, I hope they get repaired in the coming few weeks, etc. There will be an upgradation of devices. There'll be an upgradation of cloud storage. The moment you start putting your things on cloud and you require more and more space, you will have to go for a paid subscription, right? So consumers are going to be more amenable to paying for services which they find useful. Whether it's a health platform, whether it's a productivity app of any kind on the technology side, whether it helps them use their devices more favorably or keeps their devices protected, cybersecurity is going to be of concern as well. So if you're going to be able to use VPNs or firewalls in your phones to save the data on your phone, you'll be happy to pay for that. Very happy to pay for that device.
So Anup, what we have just done is we had a question on this from Prabir Jain. Way forward for cyber security and information security businesses, which he had already sent to us beforehand. So I think that Prabir's question has already been answered now. But do you want to throw a little bit more light on the cyber security startups you are looking at or the trends you are looking at?
Yeah, so I think I wanted to cover that off in a general category called Office SaaS. Okay. Generally, Office SaaS has tended to be more around, let's take SAP as an ERP solution to manage our supply chain and integrate with finance, right? It has been more of let's use Tally or let's use, PeopleSoft for HR and let's use Tally for accounting or maybe, some of the newer softwares, Zoho, etc., whatever. With a lot of workforce moving into their homes permanently on a work from home basis, even accepting salary cuts, right, in order to lead what is a better life. And I think many employees will be very happy not to suffer a commute and be able to carry out more and more of their work sitting from home. How do you manage a work from home workforce, right? They are, hooking onto a company laptop through their home Wi-Fi. There is no VPN. There is no firewall that you have in the office. There is a teacher who is doing a Zoom session for their students, from the comfort of her home. How do you monitor that session? How do you ensure that there is security around that session and some part of that session is not, utilized and misused somewhere and some caption is made and floated and, putting the organization into disrepute. So there will be a need for Office SaaS solutions which help you manage a workforce which is distributed and located at their homes. So instead of 3 offices, you will now have maybe hundreds of offices where employees are de facto running an office from their home for you in their respective role. So how do you manage such a workforce? How do you clock in, clock out? How do you ensure that they are productive? When are they out for lunch? When are they, can be called for a meeting? How do you manage calendars? How do you manage their payrolls, right? Their reimbursements and things like that. So all of this will become extremely important, right? And for IT and cybersecurity, it'll be a nightmare. So there will need to be some kind of cloud software, which is dynamically populating, right? Maybe IP addresses or VPNs and firewalls that everybody is hooked onto and is monitoring the usage of that, also linking it to their reimbursements, if they are reimbursing their Wi-Fi's at home and so on and so forth. And the number of devices and the authentication of these devices to operate off that platform. And any content, any data which is being generated. Previously, there was a lot of phone calls and emails, but now there are a lot of Zoom calls. So how do you record all of this and record it for posterity, right? Just like there was IVR recording software with your customer service agent, tomorrow if customer service goes into a home agent model, which it has in many Western developed countries. So you might be, recording tons of data, which is not really being run from a call center, but from home, right? You got to make sure that that is secure and, that is saved, preserved for any future disputes or arbitrations, etc. And, that's not just going scot-free and all of that. So Office SaaS solutions for teams of all sizes, mixed with IT SaaS, which helps you to manage such a workforce and manage such a challenging environment on IT and security. These will be solutions that will be required and will be worth investing in.
I think that has been a very interesting discussion on Office SaaS. And I'm pretty sure that everybody, all of our participants, our professors who have joined in, they have, and people who are working in different organizations, they are finding these difficulties right now. And even if they're not thinking of those challenges which we have just highlighted, they are also thinking in their own minds right now that these are the challenges which can come into my organization, come into my line of business. So I think quite enlightening discussion over here. We also understand that we are running out of time. So Anup, if you allow us, we'll take maybe 1 or 2 more questions. We'll ask you to stay with us for another 5 to 10 minutes. And we have one question from Rohit. Rohit Vora says, what are the top 3-4 things you look at before investing in a startup? You obviously mentioned team earlier. What are the other 3 things which Anup looks at?
So we look at large markets. These may not exist today, but like I shared some of our thesis, if it points to the fact that these markets will emerge as large markets for consumers, provided there are the right solutions and right distribution and right go-to-market strategies applied, and for that we have evaluated the team to be competent enough to do that, then certainly large markets is one filter that we look at. Large markets also allows you to make pivots, to make changes when you encounter failure, to be able to quickly make changes in your plans and relaunch yourself. Because if it is a small market by definition, then if you fail, then you fail forever because it's a small group of consumers.
Yes.
It's a small, field to play on. And if you fail, everybody knows that you failed and it's difficult to come back. But if it's a large market, you can experiment, test in one area, you can fail, and then you can, launch in a larger place and so on and so forth. But the third thing is that we like businesses which are essentially profitable. So businesses which are built on real problems, not on, some imaginary problems. A lot of entrepreneurs sometimes have 1 or 2 experiences on the basis of which they might think that a solution when launched will create a big market, but will that happen? So that's got to be assessed. The solutions have got to be inherently profitable. You do want to invest venture capital money into fixing issues around supply, but you don't want to overly subsidize the consumer to generate an artificial level of demand that has to be sustained through discounting. So therefore, businesses have to be essentially based around real problems, real solutions, and consumers have to be incentivized only to try your solution. And if they wholeheartedly accept the solution, then great. If they don't, then you make the change and then you come back. So there is money invested into that as well to achieve the right product market fit, so to speak. But not, not essentially unprofitable businesses where you're distributing money, literally speaking, and changing habits temporarily, and then that has to be sustained through continuous fundraising. That is not a valuable proposition and sustainable proposition according to us. So we also look at moats in the business. I think you will hear a lot of VCs speak about that. So what is your moat, right? Can somebody else copy and bring this to life? Which is why I think some of the examples that I gave earlier, direct-to-consumer businesses have an inherent moat in them. Because the data that is being generated, the data that is being shared by consumers it's only privy to you. And if you are formulating some service or product for them, then that is built around that moat of data that you have got from that consumer, right? If it is just, launch of another notebook, then there is no moat around that. Yes, consumers need notebooks, but there is no moat around that. So there has to be these 3 or 4 elements, but team comes first, yes.
Okay, understood. I hope that this question actually was asked by a lot of people earlier. So
we can go for some more time if you feel that the questions are many and some of the themes may be interesting.
Thank you for allowing us that.
I can see some of the Q&As over here.
Can you pick up any Q&A and please go ahead with them? We are comfortable with the same.
Okay. So somebody has said, Guneet saying, what are some of the key differences between building a D2C brand and building a brand through the traditional channels? So I won't speak about the latter because that is very well known. A D2C brand essentially starts off by building a community of consumers online. Now you have various methods to do that. There was Facebook yesterday, there is Insta today. And if you're coming up with a D2C product which is more elevated or very niche or something, then you could even do that in places like LinkedIn or Twitter or other social media. But got to have a community of consumers who are in touch with you, who are engaged with you at the very first instance. And for that, you need to build these digital and online properties. So a lot of content comes in play over here. Tools which engage consumers and get data from them come in over here. And consumers don't readily part with data unless they're engaged and they trust you. So content helps go a long way over here. Show the credibility in that particular segment and get consumers to form that sticky community. And then launch your products in the community, test it with them, get their feedback, relaunch the products, launch another portfolio of products, continuously keep taking feedback, be in touch with them. I think that's how you slowly build that business, right? And while it seems extremely slow and it seems a little bit unviable, but this is the way to go today. Marketing costs, channel costs can be extremely expensive in the offline era. It takes a lot of effort. It means hiring of foot soldiers, people in the field, etc. I think all of that has been in today's world at least solved. There is e-commerce delivery players, large ones of that, delivery, e-com, e-cart, etc., who are delivering to various pin codes in the country, hundreds of them. So there is no need, to actually go through traditional channels and do the forceful task of having to pay for shelf space. They ask for listing fees to place your brand on the shelf. So most of the invested capital then goes into that. Rather spend that money with consumers, understanding them, making them sticky on a platform and building a community, which will last with you and be owned by you forever, right? So you can build the tech around that. So I think that stays with you as a proprietary tool forever. And then you can send any products through on an ordering platform, which can be yours or third party, which is very easy to do in today's time, with a whole lot of delivery players being already organized around that. So I think that's the sort of potential answer. Yes.
Building a D2C brand.
Yeah. Post-pandemic, new normal, what are your views on what companies need to be doing now and in the coming months to prepare their business model and operation capabilities? I think work from home workforce is something that you should definitely take it up as a serious option, okay? And link even lower salaries, because the employees will have a lower commute, lesser sense of fatigue, right? And will save on many of their physical, emotional, financial costs over there. So the only thing that you have to do is adopt a solution which helps monitor that workforce and helps them being productive, so that it doesn't become sort of a loose, a loose option, and it is respected in its full way, both ways. So that is, I think, a very, very fundamental shift, and even that will take you some time to settle down and start operating in that new culture, right? The other bit is that if you had any desktop environment and server-based environment, certainly on the IT side, please go to a cloud-based environment, so that in any such situation of any kind, your business can continue to operate and there is no problem in business continuity. Those guys who have had, desktops and tallies and all of that stuck in their offices and they could not ship computers and things like that, well, these things should be things of the past. So definitely invest in some of those and transfer your system to being a cloud-based system rather than a office server-based system, which then gets stuck in a desktop environment. So certainly it'll require some upgrades. It'll mean some checking of, key employees, key senior management employees should be fully equipped to run an office from home. So I think that is also required. travel is not going to be a pleasurable, commodity. I think in the coming months, people are going to travel less and less, even through flights, etc., even when they open up. So get used to the idea of doing business over these calls, these webinars or whatever, these Zoom calls and video conferencing. So certainly prepare yourself for this and start working it with your clients. I think more and more people after the first 2 weeks, I also realized that in my business are now absolutely fine with doing business on video conferences. So prepare your audience for that, right? On how to use it. It's easier said than done, but many people still don't know how to use it effectively. So prepare your workforce for doing business in this fashion. So I think these are some very basic things, but which you need to immediately address as foundational stuff in your businesses, so that tomorrow you can make more changes depending on what the nature of your business is. So I don't want to comment on that. It will be different for different businesses, but these are very foundational.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zuhaib. Well, Anup, it was wonderful listening to you. We met after so many years, but wonderful. And I'm sure that all my participants, more than 160 of them at any given time, must have learned as much as I have learned. Wonderful, you spoke about wonderful concepts, change in the domain, career path, company, and you realize that this is required. World is moving fast. You need to look at the international markets and large markets. Even e-commerce is moving on, not to follow others, but follow your passion, and money will come. That's a great promise, Anup. Money will come. Diverse portfolios will have better returns. Self-belief and commitment are the two mantras which are going to work. And I was so impressed when you identified the areas like health and wellness and fitness to be the new things to come in. And direct to the consumer channels will be more successful. Very nice observation. Discretionary spend is going to be in check. And business viability is going to be under pressure post-COVID-19. Newer concepts. I was impressed with home chefs and different areas that you talked about. And more things will move on to online platforms like work from home, like cloud computing. And you mentioned a wonderful thing, that favorable mindset towards subscription-based models. So grateful to you, Anup, that you brought out so many points and many more points. I'm sure all my audience must have been impressed. I can share with you that right now online, I have a few of my own class fellows online, and I have a professor from Sydney who is attending your seminar. There is a gentleman who is almost 12 years senior to me from FMS who is right now attending the seminar, Nitin Gupta, and a couple of faculty colleagues are also attending your webinar. Thank you very much for being there. We are also grateful to Zuhaib for handling the webinar so well, and Zuhaib, impressed, seriously. Nitin and Dheeraj for putting together all the help, all the work, and we are grateful to all the participants, particularly faculty members, very senior alumni, and all other people who have attended the seminar. We hope to get Anup back to the same webinar once again, whenever he is convenient to him. And also, Anup, you must visit the small building.
So it's a part of one's, growing up years, and one never forgets the beautiful moments spent over there in your guidance. And, of course, I was accountable for many mischievous moments as well, which I only remember, both inside and outside the class. So we often share that. We had a Zoom call in our own group yesterday just to connect, in our own batch, 26 people. That's quite a healthy component which joined in. We have less people in a reunion. So that tells you about the power of digital. So I'm very happy that...
we have very few faculty members of your times right now in FMS. Professor Madhuvich is also superannuating in the month of July.
Yes, I remember her very fondly.
I think I will be the only leftover.
So thank you very much. It's been a real privilege and great to see you. You haven't changed much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing this, Nitin, Zuhaib, and I hope it was useful to many, if not all. And I've shared my email if anyone connects. Look, this is a two-way process. One doesn't have the right answers. One can just do some crystal ball gazing. Some of it will turn out to be correct. Some of it will not turn out to be correct. And it's a two-way process. So I'm very happy that you're organizing these webinars. The travel to the Little Red Building is always a challenge.
So we are hoping to get Manoj Kohli maybe next week or next to next week.
That's very good. I'll be attending that as well. He's a stalwart. So that'll be very helpful. And thank you for organizing this.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for being there. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And take care. Please take care.
Yes, thank you very much. Same for you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anup. Thank you, Singla sir. Thank you, all the participants. Have a good Sunday.